The neighborhood had always been a place Zara felt safe, quiet streets lined with modest homes. Friendly neighbors waving hello, kids playing on lawns as the sun set. But lately, the comfort she once took for granted was slipping away. It began with the electricity bills. At first, Zara thought it was a simple mistake. Maybe the meter reader was wrong, or there had been some glitch. But month after month, the bills climbed higher, far beyond what a single person living alone should. She kept track meticulously, cutting back on late-night TV, unplugging appliances, switching to energy-efficient bulbs. Still, the numbers didn't budge. One evening, as she walked back from the mailbox, Zara noticed the faint hum of an electric device coming from somewhere nearby. The sound was almost imperceptible but constant, like a quiet drone. Curious, she glanced around and saw her neighbor Karen's house, its porch light flickering erratically. Karen was notorious for being controlling and nosy, always the first to report the smallest infraction in the neighborhood, and quick to stir up trouble at homeowners' meetings. Something about the way the lights flickered made Zara uneasy. That night, after the neighborhood had fallen silent, Zara took a flashlight and stepped outside. She followed the cables leading from her meter box, eyes sharp in the beam of light. Underneath the old wooden fence that separated her property from Karen's, she spotted something, an unusually thin wire running clandestinely from her power source to Karen's house. Her heart pounded. This wasn't a coincidence. It was theft. The reality sank in. Karen had been stealing electricity, powering her home on Zara's dime. Zara thought of confronting Karen immediately, but she held back. She needed proof. The next morning, Zara called the electric company to request a professional inspection, explaining her suspicions in detail. Within days, a technician came by, confirming what Zara already feared. The unauthorized connection was draining power directly from her meter. But before any action could be taken, Karen found out. The confrontation came suddenly. Sharp words exchanged at the neighborhood park, witnessed by several residents. "You're trying to ruin me," Karen accused loudly. "I've done nothing wrong. You cut my power without warning. How dare you?" Zara stood her ground. "I reported an illegal connection. You're stealing electricity." But Karen was persuasive, twisting the story. Soon, whispers floated through the neighborhood. Some sided with Karen, calling Zara petty and vindictive. Others stayed silent, afraid to pick sides. That night, Zara came home to find her meter box tampered with, scratches on the casing, wires loosened. The message was clear: back off or face consequences. Fear gnawed at her, but she refused to be intimidated. With a mix of anger and determination, Zara realized this was no longer just about electricity. It was about standing up to someone who believed they could get away with anything, and about fighting for what was right. And as Karen threatened to report Zara to the Homeowners Association and local police, the battle lines were drawn. This was just the beginning. The morning after Zara found her meter box tampered with, she woke to a nervous buzz in her phone, a flurry of texts and calls from neighbors. Some supportive, others warning her to back off. Karen had already launched her counterattack, spreading rumors that Zara was the troublemaker, exaggerating, even lying. Zara's heart sank. The neighborhood had turned into a battlefield where truth was blurred by gossip and fear. But she wasn't alone. Malik, a seasoned attorney who had helped neighbors with home disputes before, contacted her after hearing about the situation. He warned her of the complexities ahead. Karen isn't just a petty thief, Malik said over coffee. She's connected friends with some HOA board members and local officials. This will get messy. Zara swallowed hard. She was prepared for a fight, but not a war. Her first move was to install surveillance cameras focused on the meter box and the fence line. She wanted concrete proof of any further tampering or theft. Days passed with tense quiet, until one night the cameras caught movement. A shadowy figure crept to the meter box, tools in hand. The next morning, Zara reviewed the footage. Karen, herself, gloved and furtive, attempting to disconnect or sabotage the meter. The evidence was damning. But when Zara shared it with the whole board, their reaction shocked her. Instead of condemning Karen's actions, a few members expressed sympathy for her and hinted at community harmony being more important than legal battles. Zara realized the Hoa was compromised, biased in Karen's favor. Determined to hold her ground, she decided to rally the other neighbors who might be suffering silently. She knocked on doors, distributing flyers explaining the situation, urging residents to speak out and stand together against such abuses. Some responded with gratitude, sharing their own suspicions of Karen's manipulations. Others, however, refused to get involved, fearing retaliation. The tension in the neighborhood grew palpable. Street gatherings whispered with anxious conversations. Some houses bore new locks and security systems. Meanwhile, Karen's attacks intensified. She filed complaints against Zara with the Hoa, alleging harassment and defamation. She even went to the police, accusing Zara of tampering with her own meter to frame her. Zara's frustration boiled. She knew this was a calculated move to wear her down. One afternoon, Malik arranged a meeting with the HOAS legal counsel. Zara sat stiffly across the table, documents piled high. "Your evidence is solid," Malik said quietly. "But the HOAS hands are tied unless you take this to court or the utility commission. It's going to be expensive and exhausting." Zara nodded. She was ready to fight, but the looming battle seemed daunting. That night, as she sat reviewing the surveillance footage, her phone buzzed with an anonymous message: "Stop digging or else." The warning chilled her to the bone. She knew this was no longer just a dispute over electricity. It was a war against a neighbor who would stop at nothing, backed by a corrupt system. But Zara's resolve only deepened. If Karen wanted a fight, she would get one, and she would win. Zara lay awake that night, the anonymous threat echoing in her mind like a sinister drumbeat. "Stop digging or else." The words replayed over and over, chilling her to the core. Who was behind this? Karen, the Hoa, someone else entirely? The lines between friend and foe blurred in the darkness. The next morning, she noticed something strange. Her car had a long scratch down the side, fresh, deliberate. It wasn't just a warning now. It was intimidation in full force. Despite the fear, Zara refused to retreat. She needed allies, and fast. Malik introduced her to Priya, an investigative journalist known for exposing local corruption. Priya's keen eye and dogged determination gave Zara renewed hope. "Let's shine a light on this," Priya said, flipping through the surveillance footage. "People need to know what's really going on." Together, they planned a feature story exposing the electricity theft, Hoa bias, and the growing harassment. Priya promised it would make waves. Meanwhile, Zara kept documenting everything: every call, every suspicious encounter, every letter from the HOA accusing her of misconduct. Then, a surprising call came from Emily, a quiet neighbor who had mostly stayed on the sidelines until now. "I've seen things," Emily whispered over the phone. "Karen's been doing this to others, cutting power, stealing resources, and no one dares speak up." Emily's voice trembled but carried urgency. "I want to help, but I'm scared." Zara's heart swelled. She wasn't alone. They arranged to meet secretly in a nearby cafe. Emily handed Zara a folder thick with photos, receipts, and recorded conversations that revealed Karen's pattern of theft and manipulation. With this new evidence, Zara felt the tide turning. But just as hope surged, the darkness deepened. That same week, the power in Zara's house flickered violently, and when her home plunged into sudden blackout. The electric company confirmed it wasn't a technical failure. Someone had tampered with the wiring. Zara's safety felt at risk. She installed new security measures, motion sensors, alarms, and backup power sources, but the message was clear. Someone was willing to escalate the conflict to dangerous levels. At the community HOA meeting that week, tension filled the air like thick fog. Karen arrived with her usual smirk, backed by a few allies on the board who dismissed Zara's claims as exaggerated or personal vendettas. But Priya was there too, recording every word, every sneer. When Zara took the floor, she revealed Emily's evidence and played excerpts of Karen's own voice caught on tape, confessing to illegal electricity use. The room fell silent. Karen's mask slipped for a moment, replaced by a flash of panic. The HOA board was forced to acknowledge the accusations. But then, a bombshell dropped. Karen's attorney handed the board a legal notice. Zara was accused of property damage and harassment based on complaints filed by Karen and others aligned with her. The board adjourned abruptly, leaving Zara standing alone, feeling the walls close in. Outside, the whispers began again, questions about Zara's motives, her sanity, her credibility. Zara looked around, realizing the fight wasn't just for justice anymore. It was for survival, for truth against a web of lies, secrets, and power plays. And the shadows that had crept into her life were just beginning to stretch. The cold wind whipped through the streets as Zara stepped out of the HOA building, the weight of the legal notice pressing heavily on her chest. Her heart pounded not just from the confrontation, but from the realization that Karen was playing a far deeper, more dangerous game than she had imagined. The accusations of property damage and harassment weren't just empty threats. If Karen succeeded, Zara would be the one facing penalties, possibly even eviction. The whole neighborhood was watching and waiting to see if she would fall. Back at home, the atmosphere was tense. Malik paced the living room, running through possible legal strategies while Zara stared blankly at the floor. "This isn't just about electricity anymore," Malik said grimly. "Karen's weaponizing the system to isolate you, discredit you. You're up against more than a single neighbor, you're fighting a whole network." Zara swallowed hard. She felt small, overwhelmed. But deep inside, a fire flickered. Giving up was not an option. Days later, the neighborhood felt like a pressure cooker. Muffled whispers followed Zara wherever she went. Doors closed quickly behind her. Even old friends seemed wary, unsure whether to support her or stay silent. One afternoon, Zara received an anonymous package left on her doorstep. Inside was a small USB drive and a hastily scrawled note. "Watch this, it explains everything." With trembling hands, she plugged the drive into her laptop. The files revealed shocking footage, videos, and audio recordings exposing the inner workings of the HOA board meetings, private conversations between Karen and certain board members, and plans to suppress anyone who challenged their authority. The evidence hinted at bribery, manipulation, and deliberate attempts to cover up illegal activities. Zara's eyes widened. The fight was bigger than she thought. She contacted Priya immediately, and together they planned to blow the story wide open. But before they could act, the power in Zara's house cut out again, this time for hours. When the electricity finally returned, Zara found her laptop corrupted, the files partially deleted. Someone was watching. Someone wanted to silence her, determined. Zara backed up the files on multiple drives and in cloud storage. She started sharing encrypted copies with trusted friends and legal contacts. The next HOA meeting was looming, and Zara knew Karen would stop at nothing to crush her. On the day of the meeting, Zara arrived early. prepared to confront the board and present her new evidence. As she entered the room, she caught Karen's cold smile, a silent challenge. But Zara had something more powerful now. The truth. As she set up her presentation, the room buzzed with anticipation. The battle lines had been drawn, and this time, no one would walk away unscathed. The Hoa meeting room was packed, the air thick with anticipation. Neighbors, some curious and others wary, filled the seats. Zara stood at the front, heart racing but resolute. The stolen electricity, the harassment, the tampering, it all led to this moment. She was ready to expose the truth. The projector hummed as she started her presentation, flashing images of the hidden wires, surveillance footage of Karen tampering with the meter, and most damning of all, the secret recordings of Karen's conversations with Hoa members plotting to silence dissenters. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some faces shifted uncomfortably, others exchanged looks of surprise and shock. Karen's confident smirk faltered. She leaned over to whisper something to one of her allies on the board. The room's energy shifted, like a storm about to break. Just then, the lights flickered. A collective gasp echoed as the projector screen went black. Whispers turned to anxious chatter. Zara's heart sank. Was this a power outage? Sabotage? Before she could react, a voice cut through the murmur. Powers. Back, the lights snapped on. The projector flickered and returned, but the image was distorted. Someone had hacked into the system. Karen smiled smugly, triumphant. But then, unexpectedly, a phone buzzed. It was Malik. He whispered urgently through the speakerphone, "Zara, we've got a problem. Karen just filed a restraining order against you. The judge's decision is pending. You might be forced out before this even gets serious." The room grew tense. Karen's legal weapon was swift and ruthless. Zara's hands clenched into fists. This wasn't just a neighborhood dispute anymore. It was a war on every front. Suddenly, an unexpected figure rose from the crowd. Emily, the quiet neighbor who had given Zara the folder, stepped forward. "I have more to share," she said, her voice steady despite the tension. "There's something no one knows." All eyes turned to her. Emily pulled out a thick envelope and placed it on the table. Inside were documents revealing Karen's past, a history of fraud, multiple complaints of similar behavior in previous neighborhoods, and even a sealed investigation by local authorities that mysteriously disappeared. The crowd murmured in disbelief. Karen's confident facade cracked, her eyes narrowing as Emily's revelations sank in. Zara seized the moment. "This isn't just about stolen electricity," she said firmly. "It's about a pattern of abuse and deception designed to manipulate and control. We deserve better." The Hoa board members shifted uncomfortably. Then, the door burst open. The local police chief strode in, holding an official warrant. Due to recent evidence and ongoing investigations, he announced, "We will be conducting a full audit of Hoa activities and reviewing Karen's involvement." Gasps filled the room. Karen's smirk disappeared entirely. For the first time, the tide seemed to turn. The restraining order delayed. The intimidation crumbling. Zara felt a surge of relief, but knew better than to let her guard down. This fight was far from over. As the meeting adjourned, Malik whispered, "We've opened Pandora's box. Now it's about who can survive what comes next." Zara nodded. She wasn't just fighting for her electricity anymore. She was fighting for the soul of the neighborhood, and she was ready for the storm ahead. After the Hoa meeting, the neighborhood buzzed like an electric current, some in disbelief, others in fear. The police chief's announcement had thrown a wrench into Karen's plan, but Zara knew this was just the beginning of a much bigger battle. That night, Zara sat on her porch, the cool air barely calming her racing mind. Malik was on the phone with some contacts, trying to speed up the investigation, while Priya was preparing her expose, ready to publish once the police gave the green light. Despite the small victories, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that Karen was planning her next move. Sure enough, within days, the harassment intensified. Her mailbox was filled with threatening letters, each more aggressive than the last. Her car tires were slashed twice, and one evening, someone threw a rock through her living room window. Neighbors, once hesitant, now crossed the street to avoid her dot. It was isolation, a calculated strategy to break her spirit. But Zara refused to bend. She installed more cameras, hired a security guard, and began keeping a detailed journal of every incident. Malik filed a request for a protective order based on the harassment. Then came a surprise, a neighborhood meeting called by the whole board, without Karen. The agenda was clear: damage control. The board members spoke cautiously, trying to calm the neighborhood and distance themselves from Karen's actions. They hinted that many of Karen's deeds were done without official approval. Attempting to save face, Zara saw an opportunity. She stepped up, addressing the crowd with a mix of determination and compassion. "We all want a safe, fair community," she said. "But that won't happen while one person manipulates and divides us. We have a choice: to stand together for the truth or let fear tear us apart." Her words struck a chord. Some neighbors nodded, others whispered agreement. But Karen wasn't. Done late that night, Zara's phone buzzed with a cryptic message: "You think you're winning? This is just the beginning." The chilling words reminded Zara that her fight was against a relentless adversary. The following day, Priya's article went live, titled "Electricity Theft, Harassment, and Corruption: One Neighborhood's Battle for Justice." It quickly gained traction online and in local media. Comments poured in, supporters encouraging Zara, skeptics questioning her motives, and some fearful of what exposing the truth might bring. Then, the unexpected happened. Emily, the once silent neighbor, disappeared. Zara received a frantic call from Emily's sister, who lived out of state. "Emily's missing," she said, voice shaking. She left a note saying she was scared for her life. "We don't know where she went." Zara's stomach dropped. Was Emily's disappearance linked to Karen's threats? Had the darkness that had enveloped their community swallowed her whole? With renewed urgency, Zara reached out to Malik and the police, pushing for a search. The stakes had risen beyond stolen electricity or HOA disputes. This was now a battle for survival. And Zara knew one thing for sure: the storm was gathering. The days dragged on like a nightmare. Emily's disappearance sent shockwaves through the community, spreading fear and suspicion like wildfire. Zara felt the weight of responsibility heavier than ever. She couldn't let Emily's fate be another silent casualty. The police investigation was underway, but progress was slow. Neighbors who once whispered secrets now locked their doors tighter, afraid to speak out. Zara decided to take matters into her own hands. With Malik and Priya's help, she began digging deeper into Karen's background, looking for any clues that could explain the dark power she wielded over the neighborhood. Late one evening, while going through Emily's documents again, Zara stumbled upon a cryptic email chain buried deep within the files. The messages hinted at a hidden alliance. Karen was working with a local developer, someone eager to buy up homes at a discount for a lucrative redevelopment project. It made sense. The aggressive tactics, the sabotage, it wasn't just personal vendetta. It was a strategic move to force homeowners to sell out. Zara's mind raced. If Karen succeeded, the entire neighborhood would be lost to faceless investors, erasing years of community and history. With this new information, Zara arranged a secret meeting with a trusted HOA board member who had remained neutral, unsure which side to take. At a quiet cafe, Zara laid out the evidence. The board member's eyes widened. If this is true, we're all in danger. Karen's been using the HOA as a weapon. The ally agreed to help by providing inside information and supporting Zara's campaign. Meanwhile, Priya's expose gained momentum. The local news station picked up the story, scheduling an investigative report that would air in just a few days. Karen, realizing the walls were closing in, grew desperate. Her harassment tactics escalated. Late-night phone calls filled with threats. Anonymous notes slipped under Zara's door, and strange vehicles circling her house. But the most chilling moment came when Malik spotted a shadowy figure lurking near their property one night. When confronted, the figure vanished into the darkness without a trace. Fear and determination battled within Zara. She couldn't back down, now not when the truth was so close to the surface. On the day of the news report, a crowd gathered in the neighborhood, anxious and hopeful. The televised story laid bare Karen's schemes, the developer's plan, and the community's fight to reclaim their homes. Karen watched from a distance, her forehead cracking under the spotlight. In the aftermath, the whole board was forced to suspend Karen's membership pending a full investigation. The developer withdrew his offer, facing public backlash and legal scrutiny. Emily, though still missing, had sparked a fire that could not be extinguished. As the neighborhood rallied together, Zara felt a glimmer of hope. But deep down, she knew the battle wasn't over. There were still shadows, lurking secrets waiting to be uncovered. And Karen was not finished playing her game. The tension in the neighborhood was palpable. The televised expose had shattered Karen's carefully constructed empire of deceit. But the battle was far from over. As days passed, the community began to heal, slowly reclaiming the peace Karen had tried to destroy. Yet, Zara knew the real challenge was yet to come. Emily was still missing. Zara's heart ached with worry. Every night, she dreamed of Emily, trapped somewhere, waiting for rescue. Determined to find her, Zara worked tirelessly with Malik, the police, and community volunteers. They combed through abandoned properties, hidden pathways, and old storage sheds, places Karen had hinted at in her threats. One rainy evening, a breakthrough arrived. A local hiker discovered a concealed trail leading to a rundown cabin deep in the woods outside town. The police quickly organized a search party, with Zara and Malik among them. As they approached the cabin, a mix of fear and hope twisted in Zara's chest. Inside, they found Emily disheveled but alive. She explained how Karen's threats had escalated into kidnapping, a desperate move to silence the last major witness. Emily's testimony was damning. She revealed Karen's plan to blackmail several HOA members to gain control and force them to sell their homes at low prices to the developer. With this final piece of evidence, the authorities moved swiftly. Karen was arrested on multiple charges: harassment, kidnapping, fraud, and conspiracy. The neighborhood breathed a collective sigh of relief. At a special HOA meeting weeks later, the community voted unanimously to restructure the board, ensuring transparency and fairness moving forward. Zara was elected as the new president, symbolizing a fresh start. Standing before her neighbors, she spoke with quiet strength. "We've been through a dark chapter, but together we reclaimed our community. This victory isn't just mine. It belongs to every one of you who stood up for what's right." But as the crowd cheered, Zara couldn't shake a lingering unease. During the trial, hidden emails surfaced, messages between Karen and an unknown accomplice, hinting that the web of corruption was wider than anyone realized. Late that night, Malik called with a grave warning. "Zara, there's someone watching you. We need to be careful." Zara looked out her window into the quiet street, shadows dancing in the moonlight. The fight for justice had won this battle, but the war for truth and safety was just beginning. The end.